I like people to participate, and I like talking about music and helping people with music and things like that. But ultimately, the main thing is that I feel good about my performance. That I'm in a situation where good music could be received, and that I'm delivering it.
Facebook stream spot. I've watched many live Facebook streams from right where you're at now. Really cool stuff. This is where all the magic happens, right here.
Yeah, either here or at the piano. Yeah.
Oh, so you actually what do you have, a baby grand in there too?
Yeah, full grand.
Oh wow.
Very nice. Very nice.
That is fancy.
Yeah.
That is fancy. So what's up, man? So obviously we got some, everybody's dealing with this COVID-19 in different ways. It's affecting everybody. I know you've seen, I'm sure you've seen some impact on, every musician with gig and stuff like that. If you could maybe go over what your personal experience is, what you've dealt with, any struggles you've encountered during this crisis, how you've been coping, and how you're staying busy.
Yep. Sure. I was going to try to plug you into something. I don't know if you can get more output on your end.
Am I too quiet? Are we too quiet for you?
You're a little quiet. Can you give me a little more possible?
I can bump it up a little bit.
Otherwise, I can put it through, I can amplify it on my end too.
Okay. How about that?
Great.
Okay.
That's good.
What about the other guys? You guys volume?
Okay? Yeah, you're crystal clear for me, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Well, I've been doing a lot of FaceTime lessons.
Oh, perfect.
This whole setup, and so I've been doing that, and I've been doing some live streaming. I play for a church. I do the live stream for them every Sunday,
and I caught some of that last week, and I was blown away by your rendition of Crystal Silence. Totally caught off guard, man. I've never heard you play any Chick Corea stuff like that. I was blown away.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a different thing that I do, and so often when I play, I don't really play that style because I play a lot of times in clubs where people just they're not listening quite as much. So one of the upsides of this whole live streaming thing is you can be in a quieter situation.
Yeah, and you can do whatever you want. I was really enjoying the 70s TV theme. That was terrific. I loved it. And then just the live stream, all of it's been great, man. I've really been digging it.
Well, I'm trying to come up with different themes every time,
Oh, sweet.
So,
yeah, I was rocking, dude. Like, because a lot of people are doing these Facebook live streams and all that good stuff. But every time yours comes on, I make a point to stop what I'm doing. And,
good.
Yeah, I sit through the whole thing. There's no lulls in the performance. It's just rock solid the whole time.
Well, I'm usually like tonight and tomorrow. I kind of come up with a program, and I come up with a song list, and then for the last couple Oregon ones, I did some drum tracking because I couldn't.
I noticed, yeah.
I'm not so good with the
pretty sweet drum sound you got going over there. This doesn't sound electronic at all, or whatever.
No, it's that.
Oh,
nice.
Wait.
You're just following the drummer. You're just following the drummer, right, Ken?
I have to follow the drummer the whole time. I know. Once I come up with the form, I'm stuck.
So you got a live drummer there with you too when you're playing?
No, I'm tracking the drum.
I play the live drummer.
Oh, so yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
I track the drums beforehand.
Oh, okay. That's pretty
Except
sweet.
This weekend, I might have my daughter with me. She plays drums. So.
Oh, cool. What do you got for a theme coming up this week?
I haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay. Well, I'm sure it'll be a great one.
It'll probably be funky Oregon again, I think.
Oh, yep. Can't argue with that.
Keep it funky, man. Keep it funky. I was doing some shout outs in the last. It was like one of the last ones you did. I kept typing Eternal Funk and all. I was that annoying guy in the chat, just Eternal Funk, Eternal Funk.
I can't even bother keeping track of it all. I'm trying to keep my own things straight. I started looking at the phone and
yeah, I figured. So we caught your performance at Mercy Tavern. What was that, like a couple months ago or whatever?
That was over the winter.
Yeah, so killer performance, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was it was primarily the Stax thing. That's how they were marketing it anyway.
What is it? Stax?
There was one of them that was a tribute to Stax, and I did a lot of Otis Redding, and I did a lot of Booker T.
Yeah, that was the one. You did a lot of Booker T and all the that was terrific.
Yeah, I mean they're a huge influence anyway, so it wasn't, I had to kind of review, and we all had to learn the songs the same way anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, Ken, you've been an influence to us, man. And for those who don't know, Ken Clark here, he's somewhat of a local legend to a lot of people around here. And you were my first exposure to, really anything having to do with the B3.
Yeah.
At a young age, I was still in high school. They were letting me in Dodge Street because, weren't supposed to be, but we had a band that.
Okay. Yeah.
What's that?
I was saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I don't even know what you just said. But being exposed to you at that young age when we were learning how to play was it was an invaluable experience. And, we've been huge fans of you for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, Dodge Street, although some people talk sometimes about the downsides of it, but it was a 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
With a light PA. And they weren't dumbing it down, generally speaking. They were trying to have some sort of something interesting, which is harder and harder to find, really.
Well, the concept of the two B3s, it's really an absurdity when you think about it. And the fact that you guys did that for so long is just amazing.
Yeah.
It's sick that it's like, we were talking about this the other day. It's like you got these big touring acts and they don't even have analog organs. They just have everything's electronic these days, so it's like really cool to see. What's that?
Yeah, that is what they use a lot of times. I recently did a tour with a group called the Blues Project, and the guy who I was replacing, oh my goodness, anyway, he's a guy who played with Bob Dylan. I'm like
sweet.
Bob Dylan right here.
Anyway, my point, we were playing some pretty big venues, and so Al Cooper, thank you very much. I was replacing Al Cooper in the Blues Project, and they were still thinking, well, maybe just bring a small rig, because the truth is sometimes, say the stage is 6 feet high, there's no real way to, there's no real ramps, it's not a real theater or something. I mean, it's all fine until every once in a while.
Yeah.
You just, every once in a while, someone's going to have to suck it up and do some terrible lifting when you're touring.
Yeah.
That's the part.
I have a twin reverb amp that weighs about 80 pounds with nothing in the back of it. So I feel your pain, but you're in a worse situation for sure.
400 pounds.
Yeah. A little worse.
I feel
Ken, speaking of celebrity associations, you had mentioned to me that you had actually played with Merle Saunders at one point. I could have sworn. Was it Merle Saunders?
Saunders. Melvin Sparks.
Melvin Sparks. My apologies. Yes, Melvin Sparks.
Right. Yeah, I played with Melvin Sparks for about 3 years.
Wow.
So I was touring with him, and it was a great experience. That was what last night's show was. It was kind of a tribute to him. A lot of it was all kinds of funky organ, but it was a tribute partially to the stuff that I used to do with him.
Sure. Now, how did you get started with him, and when were you actually playing with him?
I'm trying to remember the answer to the first question. I don't remember how I got recommended for the gig.
Wow.
It was like a pretty.
Woke up one day, huh?
I think he found me, honestly.
Wow, wow.
And it was from 03 to somewhere around 03 to somewhere around 08.
Okay.
it was that long, but it was somewhere. Yeah,
that's quite a good amount of time to be playing with a guy like that.
Yeah.
Are there any recordings that exist with you?
I don't think so. I mean, if they are, they're like bootlegs.
Yeah, I'll have to scour the internet to see if I can find something.
Yeah, I don't know. If you find one, send it to me. I had one. I lent it to somebody, and I said, "Don't lose it." And they lost it.
Of course.
Yeah. Ken, so I'm fairly new to your music. Steve and I know Lenny are big fans, and Steve's the one who kind of introduced me to your music.
Sure.
But I'm wondering because I listened to Dr. Orgenstein. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was Orgenstein, but I figured it was Orgenstein.
Yeah.
But I loved it. I thought it was great. I love the sound. I love the recording. It was very crisp and clean, which I'm really into.
Good.
I'm just wondering, just because I know, just backtracking, you had mentioned a couple of people were your influences. Who would you say are your biggest influences in music in general that just kind of got you started?
Yeah. Well, I've gone through a couple of stages, I can honestly say. I really liked Billy Preston early on. And then, Greg Raleigh, who played on that first Santana album.
Mm.
And Ray Manzarek, who played with the Doors.
Oh, yeah. Love Manzarek, yep.
Yeah. And then I got into, I was really more into piano players for a while. Into like Thelonious Monk and
yeah.
That's probably when you picked up the Chick Corea tunes, huh?
Yeah, probably, yeah. It was just a good one for that slot, really. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. I played solo piano I played a lot of. And I got a little more into that. And then I kind of got turned on to Jimmy Smith, Jimmy McGriff, Jack McDuff.
Oh yeah, love all those guys.
Yeah. And then I got pretty heavy into that. So,
nice.
Yeah.
But so Ken, I noticed. So your newest album, is it called Funk Side, Jazz Side?
Funk Side, Jazz Side. That's right.
Yeah, this really sick album.
Thank you.
Really, I've noticed you incorporated horns in this album. I can't remember if the other albums did have horns or not, but I noticed you definitely have some sax on a couple tracks. I think what was that? Breakfast.
That's right.
What's that?
Breakfast Jam. Yeah, Breakfast Jam. It features Mayanna Pontipidian.
Cool.
Anyway, Mayanna on saxophone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds.
And then I played trumpet and mellophone on the album.
Oh, you play trumpet too.
That's right.
And a mellophone. You've got a mellophone.
Mellophone.
What?
Nice instrument drop.
Nice name drop. I don't know what a mellophone is. I'm tempted to just do a quick Google search real quick.
Mellophone it's what a sousaphone is to a tuba, a mellophone is to a French horn.
I'm looking it up now.
It's a little more mellow.
Okay, that looks like a pretty fancy, pretty sweet instrument.
Here, hang on a second.
Oh, you got the real thing.
I'll show it to you.
Bust out the real thing.
Oh, let's see it.
The mellophone.
Is that anything like a saxoboom?
No.
Yeah, saxoboom.
It's more like a baritone or I haven't played it since the COVID thing.
A bass French horn. Ken, I bet you don't have a mellotron.
I was thinking the same thing. Mellophone.
There it is.
Wow.
Oh, it's almost like an oversized cornet.
Yeah.
That thing is crazy.
Now, is that what Chuck?
Anyway.
Did Chuck Mangione play a mellophone?
No, that's a flugelhorn.
Flugelhorn. Okay, similar though, right?
It's pretty. Yeah. I mean, I would really like to play a flugelhorn, but they're harder to find. The mellophone, like
dime a dozen.
One of those instruments that no one wants.
Okay.
You said that's like kind of like the cousin to like the French horn.
It's a marching band version of a French horn. Kind of like a sousaphone is a marching band version of a tuba.
You're right.
Gotcha. I recognized it because it looks like what John Lennon's holding in the front of Sgt. Pepper. Yeah,
probably
I thought it looked familiar. So
nice.
Could be, yeah. It's a marching band instrument. That's what it is.
It does have a nice mellow tone. It's got kind of some of the sheen and brightness that you get with the trumpet missing, which is kind of nice, actually.
I started playing it because I was playing trumpet in church, and everybody was saying, "Oh, it's too loud, it's too bright, it's too." And so I thought to myself, well, if I buy something that isn't as bright, then I don't have to fight with the volume thing. Because I've hired really good trumpet players in church, and people still complain. So if their volume, they can't control enough to make those people happy, then I'm not going to be able to.
Classic trumpet's just an instrument people like to blare on, typically. It seems.
Yeah, but even when a quiet trumpet is still.
Yeah, they're very bright.
Still, it's a lead instrument that demands more attention. You've got to want to listen to trumpet, otherwise you're not going to want to listen to trumpet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Kind of get away with not listening to acoustic guitar and quiet singing. Even if you don't like it, people aren't going to complain. Trumpet people complain about.
So Ken, what's give us a kind of complete rundown what all the instruments you play, because I was
going to ask that question.
Yeah, it's the first. I didn't even know you played horns. So that's pretty sweet. Is there any other instruments that people might not know that you play?
I can play some. I play some guitar. I'm not a great guitarist, but I can play some guitar. I play drums. I sing. I can play some electric bass, although I usually don't because I play bass on organ.
Dude, so that's funny you brought that up. I always admired organ Hammond B-3 players because I'm a bass player, and the bass you play and any other most of the Hammond B-3 guys, it's always the bass is superb. It's unbelievable, and it's just the bass. Like people say, oh, it's just organ bass, but no, it's very I consider it some of the best bass playing I've ever heard because it's just so you represent the style, like you do all the notes flow. It's just very melodic. I've always respected Hammond B-3 bass. The bass. It sounds.
Thank you.
Yeah, really good, and it must be freaking really hard doing the bass line with your feet and doing the bass with your left hand and then the lead with your right. It's really need like three brains to work at Hammond B-3. It seems like.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Like Sybil.
Yeah.
No, I'm playing bass now. Oh wait, I think I'm playing the melody. You might be a little crazy.
I'm telling you,
that's amazing.
There's got to be. There is a difference between like the analog and the digital, because every time we see you live, I noticed that's just like that. There's something to a raw analog B3 that you can't get, with the digital simulation there.
Yeah, I usually find that there are usually the digital is a little muddy in the low end, and it's a little too bright in the high end.
Yeah.
So, and it gets better all the time.
Oh yeah.
But when you're really playing bass, it can be tough sometimes to make the low end sound right.
What kind of amp are you using? Like I know you're using a Leslie cabinet. Is that the amplifier that produces all the sound, or do you have like two amps, one for the low end or one for the high end, or just one?
So the one that I play out on is a Leslie 122.
Oh, cool.
And on the Leslie 122, you go out. You have a really hot signal coming out of the organ.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would overdrive an amp, generally speaking.
For sure.
And then you send it into, but the preamp and power amp are in the Leslie itself. And then it goes to a crossover, which goes to the high and the low.
Right.
And when I play live, generally speaking, certainly if I'm in a louder situation, I also send the whole signal into I send it into a bass amp with just a 15-inch speaker. Mm-hmm. And then I can set it pretty much straight up and down, and the roll off from the speaker takes care of it.
Oh, cool. So do you have to use any compression to kind of reduce those harsh extremes in the frequency? Or no. I know with my pedal board, like that. What's that?
It can sound more extreme.
Oh, okay.
If you go straight into a board out of a V3, you'll get all kinds of harsh and extreme qualities.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it gets mixed in and it kind of sounds nice. It's like, using a spice that you would never eat by itself. But if you mix it with the right thing, then it's good.
Selective.
So
Ken, are you a fan of Felix Cavalieri at all?
I do like him. Yeah.
He's actually one of my influences to make music. I don't know why, but you kind of remind me of him, like the way you play and stuff like that.
Sure.
And
well, they start off as an organ trio.
Yeah. I absolutely love the Rascals. One of my favorite bands that I feel like no one knows nowadays, but
yeah,
I love them. But yeah, my mom's a piano teacher, so I started off playing piano and keyboard. That was my first instrument. And then going back to what you said earlier about lugging equipment around, I told my dad, I was like, I don't really want to bring a piano or a keyboard on stage, so can you just buy me a guitar? So he did. He bought me a guitar. I moved into guitar, and now I regret it. Now I want to go back to piano again.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, when I was young, and I was lugging a B3 around, there were a lot of people who it just wasn't as hip. Like Joey DeFrancesco wasn't around, Soul Live, none of that stuff.
Wow.
And people were just like, "This is stupid."
You were a freak. You were a freak back then.
Yeah. One of the pioneers for sure, man. That's I think you definitely helped start that whole thing in the style of moving a truck to each gig. It's essentially what it is. You say, I got a small car I got to bring to the gig, and he's like,
you have to. There's your vehicle. You've got to be able to work on it. You have to have space for it, and it takes up a fair amount of. You can't live on a third floor walk up.
No.
and only have one move back and forth. If you play guitar, you can do that. You bring a little
right.
And a guitar, hypothetically, or saxophone, whatever. But if you play B3, there's a lot of life adjustments that have to be made.
I never thought of that. Like, that's the truth. Like, you got to find a place that makes sense, or else you can't live there.
Yeah. Well, I have one that stays in my house, and I've been in situations where I didn't move it back and forth. And so at one point, my organ lived in my van 24/7.
Wow.
Now, that's a little rough too. That has its problems. But yeah, if you play organ, you've got to, and you want to practice on organ, you got to be able to get it into your house. I mean, it's not so dissimilar with a piano. You can play on a keyboard and it's okay, but hypothetically, you could play like an electronic wind instrument or something all the time and not really ever play a saxophone. But you're not going to be the same kind of saxophone player if you do.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing seeing like some Paul McCartney performances. They're playing Derek, what's that song off of Got to Get You Into My Life off of I think it's
Revolver.
Yeah. The horn part, they're playing an electric keyboard. Like this dude's Paul McCartney. He could just snap his fingers and summon any instrument he wants. So it's kind of disappointing seeing these jacks going digital, because like, why would you do this? Just get analog.
The digital stuff is at a point where it's starting to really get close to how authentic it is, to the point where all the big acts are using that stuff now. Most of them.
Yeah. I saw Rain. They're like a Beatles tribute band in Boston. And they go through all the different phases, and they did the Sgt. Pepper phase. And I was like, how are they going to pull this off? There's too much stuff that they can't do on stage. And it was all keyboards. I was just blown out of my all the horn parts, all the special effects, all keyboard. And I was like, this is like the master instrument for all that stuff. Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the classic stuff.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I started playing trumpet actually was because I just couldn't stand playing synth trumpet anymore. I just got sick of it. And at the time I was playing in bands where, they'd have a bass player. I wouldn't be playing bass. And they'd have saxophone, guitar, a couple of singers, typical lineup. And, you'd be playing whatever, Signed, Sealed, Delivered. And I'd be playing this, bad, fake synthesizer.
Doesn't feel right.
And I'd known how to play it long enough. So I was like, I don't want to listen to this anymore. It's just making me unhappy. So I decided to start
making me angry.
Playing,
nonsense is making me angry.
Yeah, but you got to practice trumpet a lot to.
Yeah, man.
To get worthwhile. I don't really practice it enough, quite frankly. But
yeah, I remember my first instrument was saxophone, and I was just like, this this wetting the reed stuff. I was like, this is kind of annoying. So I just eventually I bought a bass, and then now I play bass. So like it's just like way easier. I don't have to wet a reed, or my lips don't hurt after half an hour. I just play bass, man, and that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
the muscular part of those instruments is just, it's rough. It's rough.
I know.
What's that thing that Peter Frampton plays?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, what's that thing that Peter Frampton does? He like blows into that thing and it makes that noise.
Oh yeah, the talk box.
Yeah, can you do that with bass? Does that work with a bass?
Well, it works with a keyboard. I know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The vocoder. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea.
I think
Frampton's is called the Framptone that works with his guitar. I actually set it up for him at a show at the Roxy in Boston years ago. I was part of the security crew, and the roadies let me set up the Framptone, so that was kind of cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've never used one.
I want to say, I think I might be wrong about this, but I could have sworn I saw Donald Fagen doing it on stage with Steely Dan.
Oh,
maybe, I don't know. I have weird memories of it, but
yeah, it's like, you know, if you're talking about 19, I don't know, whatever it is, 75 to 78.
Herbie Hancock used a lot of that back then.
Yeah,
Herbie.
It's a kind of a genre, era specific thing.
Right.
He's kind of making a comeback recently, and like Kamasi Washington, his keyboard player does a lot of that these days.
Yeah, I saw. Stanley Clark. I think it was Stanley Clark.
Hell yeah.
And his keyboard player, he used it like all the time. And I have to say, at first I was like, you know, this is going to sound really stupid after a while. The guy really knew how to use the thing. He used it more often than not, I would say, as a soloist.
Yeah. Another new band. Ken, have you heard of a band called Snarky Puppy?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. So that guy, their keyboard player, forgive me for not knowing the names, but he uses it a lot too. And that band is just, they're one of my favorite newer bands that are around. Yeah. They're incredible.
They actually have 2 keyboard players, right? Or maybe even 3.
Probably at least 2, yeah.
Right. They've got at least the guy who's the organist, who's actually done very well on his own now. And his name is escaping me. But they at least have him and a guy who plays synth. I don't think they do a lot of piano, really.
There's a lot of sound coming off that stage. So you need multiple synth instruments to do what they're doing, for sure.
Snarky, they're like a music army.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
I know one time they had a special guest, Ken. Have you heard of Jacob Collier?
Ooh. Yes, right. Young guy, plays.
He's a madman from England. He invented his own like a voice synthesizer so he can harmonize with himself. He has an album called In My Room. Does a lot of covers.
The Beach Boys. He does In My Room. Yeah, and he does.
I think I've seen things. Yeah, everybody's doing that. Actually, speaking of what's going on now with the COVID thing, everybody's using that acapella app.
Yeah.
Have you seen people's things the first time I saw it was with him?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he invented he made his own, like he did his own programming and stuff like that. So he has
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. Yeah. I knew that he was in the front line of it anyway.
Yeah. But he does this, Ken, when you get a chance, check out it's this
Pure Imagination.
True Imagination.
The Willy Wonka song.
Yeah, he does that like a cappella, and it is.
You mean like the Wonka, Willy Wonka?
Yeah, the one that Gene Wilder sings. Come with me, and you. He does like 6-part harmony on it. It's stupid.
That's incredible.
Yep. Exactly.
Yes.
But he's a freaking. He does that like it's just like 6 screens of him, and he just, you know what I mean? It's like overdub.
I think I've seen.
It looks like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, it's like a Brady Bunch kind of setup, and then he did that, and then
Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
There's another video too. Another guy got on there. He's a drummer, and he just like plays to Jacob Collier doing the 6 voices on drums. It's so cool.
Yeah, I've got to work out the whole. You know, I've managed to do everything through doing it analog in the first place. but I've got to work out, how to advertise and how to use all the technology to make.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I was really good at it, I probably would have learned how to play synthesizers better.
Yeah, but that's why we love you so much, Ken, because you stick to that analog groove, and that's part of your whole thing,
There is, I mean, there's always going to be a time when whatever fad with computerized electronic blah, blah, blah seems just stupid, in retrospect.
I swear.
I haven't seen it quite come around yet. I haven't seen people get really psyched about, I don't know, some sort of old-fashioned, I guess people like old drum machines now, right?
Is that right? Oh, yeah, the cheesy sounding ones, right?
Yeah, which I think we're still, actually, I think some of those they were at least on the cusp of analog and digital.
Yeah, like the 808 kit, classic digital kit.
Yeah, I've got here. I got this thing, can you see it there? The Octopad there.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
I don't use it too much. Sometimes I use it. It sounds, you got to be okay with things sounding really artificial.
Yeah, there's
Absolutely.
some newer variants of those pads. I think Roland makes a drum, and it's just a circular pad. You can play it like a bongo, but it's got all kinds of triggers, and you can get any kind of sound out of it you can think of.
Yeah, as much as I'm sure percussionists would tell me I'm just being an absolute dick to say this, but if you come with like a giant percussion setup, miking it can just be a nightmare, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you need to hire a company just to do sound for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. And so, like, I've been on gigs where somebody brought that thing in. For what they were really having to do, I was like, well, it's fine.
Yeah, we play with a drummer who's got like a 127-piece drums kit or something like that.
Yeah.
I think we only played one show where we actually attempted to mic everything on there. It didn't work out so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything other than 2 overheads and a kick and one out front.
It was disastrous. It was
ridiculous. It's like, I need a mic for every tom, every freaking 2 overhead bass drum. Like, dude, you're an ass.
Not to mention the in-ear monitor setups.
Yeah,
and,
he's like,
individual mixes.
Playing like we're playing Madison Square Garden here. I'm like, dude, this is like
we're renting the VFW here, man.
Ken, I was gonna say, Ken, do you have any favorite venues in the greater Boston area that like feel home to you, or outside of Boston, like a place that just like you just know it's like your place?
Yeah, sure. Well, I play at the Strange Brew in Manchester a lot.
Oh, cool.
So I play there, and sometimes I'll do a solo thing. I'll play piano, or I'll do a duo, or I'll do trio. I live in Manchester, so that's kind of one of my
there you go.
I really like also the Palace, and I'm going to be at the Palace has a bunch of rooms. So one of the shows that got canceled was it's called the Spotlight Room, which is just off of the Palace. So those are a couple rooms right in my own area, but I play all the time at the Blue Tallet. They have a nice acoustic piano there, and I go in. And it's a pretty mellow gig. It's not really
So Ken, do you have
like it.
Do you have some gigs so New Hampshire's starting to relax a little bit? Is that correct?
That's right.
So do you actually have some shows on the slate right now that you're planning for?
I'm starting to think about who I'm gonna.
Okay, still in the phase.
Who I'll talk to.
Yeah.
I've kind of been in touch with the people at the Strange Brew, and we'll see how the first week goes. Really.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So for people who don't know your streaming schedule online, maybe you could just put that out there so people know.
Yeah. Well, it's usually on Facebook. I put it on my Facebook page. That's Ken Clark. I don't know if it's the guy playing.
We'll get all the links to all your pages. After,
good.
When we do the
and then there's Ken Clark Organ Trio .us. That's the.
I noticed that .us. You don't see that too often. That's pretty cool.
Well, I was a little late on the draw. I had a website, and somebody else bought it. I don't know why.
Who's the prick that bought .com? I want to know that. Who bought .com?
I mean, we had it at one point, and then there was a time in my life where there were some things that kind of let slide into the abyss, and
Yeah, you know what's when you own domain names and you don't renew them, they get snatched up by companies where they wouldn't have otherwise. Yeah, so some stupid company in California probably has it on a list of thousands that.
It probably got bought by an AI robot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
That's how it is these days with AI. You know, they jump in and they shatter your dreams. Artificial intelligence.
Ken, I have a really annoying question for you because it's annoyed everybody I've had on here.
Oh, great.
So I'm assuming because it's kind of a tough one.
I'm annoyed already.
I don't even know what it is. I'm annoyed.
I know, back-to-back questions, but they're kind of both annoying. The first one I would say is if you were allowed to open for any artist that's ever performed in the history of music, in this very moment, I know tomorrow you'll change your mind. Everyone changes their mind every day, but in this moment, who do you think you'd pick to be the opening act for?
Someone who isn't necessarily around now.
Nope, they could have been. They could be deceased. They could have just in the history of music that you're familiar with. Somebody who you would like a dream to open for.
Oh, I don't know. Like Herbie Hancock back in the '70s, like around the time that Man-Child came out.
Yeah,
that would have been nice.
Yeah,
I mean, there's that early '70s that. If you said it that way, I would like to. If it was now, I don't know. I'd like to open for maybe Steve Winwood. Be great.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I think you're the second person to say that. We've had like 12 guests. That's the second time I've heard Steve Winwood.
A lot of people say Steve Winwood. That's crazy.
He's great. He's great. He's a great guitar player, great piano player, great singer.
Now, would you want to open for Steve Winwood or would you want to open for Faith, Blind Faith?
Oh, gee, I don't know. That's funny. I just listened to a video of Blind Faith.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And that wasn't a glitch. I was literally thinking.
So Steve was doing that last week. Steve's pretty good at fake outs with internet connection there. You really got me on that one.
Yeah, he does that a lot. And then sometimes it's real, which is scary.
Well, you do it too.
Yeah. Right, those are the best lie.
I'm like, you there? No, I'm here. I'm just staying still.
From what I know about the personalities of the guys in Blind Faith, I think I'd be a little concerned about opening for them. I mean, it could be great.
Okay, so getting off the musical point, just I see what you're saying. That's probably why we made one album together in the first place.
Yeah, it could be terrible. Could be terrible.
I guess.
Yeah. So you asked that, and what was the other thing? Opening.
So the second question. So yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah, you pretty much answered the one. Herbie Hancock or Steve Winwood. But the other question I have is a little bit more difficult because it's not just about music, or it can be, depending on how you look at it. But I would say if you could have dinner with any three people in history, who would it be?
Oh my God. Any three people in history.
Keep in mind, just to give you some insight, we've had people say musicians. We've actually had someone say Aleister Crowley. So it's all up in the air.
Got some weird answers for this question.
Was that you, Derek?
Yeah, a weird one.
That actually wasn't me, surprisingly.
Yeah,
I don't even know. I might have to pass on that one. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not annoyed. I just don't. I think that would have to be one that I'd have to think about a little bit more.
I understand.
All right, maybe for the next one.
We'll do part two. We'll do some follow-up questions. For this question,
I can say this for sure. There are people who I respect a lot and I've learned a lot and I think a lot of, who I would not want to even. I can say that I didn't even try to shake hands with Jimmy Smith when I.
Untouchables.
Right. Yeah, or they're mean people. What they do artistic, I have huge respect for them, but I don't want to know them personally.
I got you.
It's interesting.
It's always hard when that happens. Yeah, it's like I adore people, and then I find out they're pricks, and it just irritates me.
It's too bad though. Ken, I'm sure you know Victor Wooten. Are you familiar with Victor?
Sure. I opened for him.
Oh, get out of here!
When
was that?
I was at the House of Blues when it was in Harvard Square.
Right.
Oh, nice. Was that with?
He's a nice guy.
They were all very nice. They were.
Yeah, they're all. Every time we.
Go ahead.
We lost
money. And talk to them every time. They're super generous.
Yeah.
They were very nice. Yeah. They all seem very nice. So the interesting thing about opening for them, it was when he was doing the duo thing with just a drummer.
Oh, that was the Vital Tectones, I think. or was that I forget? It was maybe.
I don't really remember.
Yeah.
Somehow we got a gig opening for him with the Ken Clark Organ Trio.
That's awesome.
And his drums were all tuned like super, super funky. Like he had a kick drum that was like only, it was like 12 inches diameter and 3 feet long. They were so extreme. And we got up and our drummer had to play those drums, and like they only sounded like one thing. They sounded like, like the kick drum never sounded like buh. It always sounded like two every single time,
It's like
really
kind of like with Terry Bozzio. I don't know if you've seen him tune his
drums. Maybe Terry Bozzio. Yeah, I mean it didn't sound like it certainly wasn't traditional kick drum. It sounded like a really. It was more like a floor tom.
Oh wow!
Like a long floor tom. Anyway, so when we opened for him, so we had to change our set list just to work around crazy drums.
Well, yeah, you mentioned like artists being kind of dicks, rude, and stuff like that. And I always use Victor as an example because he always has this quote. He does like TED Talks and stuff like that, and he always opens with this quote from his mother. And his mother, when they were growing up, used to always say, "What does the world need with another great musician?" It's like the point was like we have plenty of great musicians. We need good people. And Victor's the shining example of that. Like multi-Grammy Award winner. Like Victor's the top of his game, and
right.
I guess you can argue he has every right to be a dick, but he doesn't, and he's so cool and approachable. And I think that's the point his mother was trying to make. Like, and I think that definitely carried through his personality. It's so cool to see, masters of the universe be so down to earth, and that ultimately that's super inspiring to younger musicians, and I think that's the main goal here. I
mean, anyone can be a dick.
Oh yeah,
you don't have to.
Right. Absolutely,
whether you deserve it or not is like complete. What's the word? It comes from your own perspective,
Yeah.
But the truth is, no one deserves to be a dick. If you're a dick,
Yeah, you're right.
It doesn't matter how good you are at your field, ultimately.
People with fame, they take advantage and they're like, I can get away with it and I could just be a dick. And there's no need for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you might get it. Right.
Yeah, you might.
At least in some way. You'll get away with it in a moment. But you would think that ultimately people are going to deal with some sort of issues down the road.
Yeah. So it's always cool to see, people top of their game being so cool. And that's kind of like this podcast, that's kind of like the main theme here. We're like, we want to bring the music community together. That's why you were one of our top picks to be on the show, because
that's great. Thank you.
So down to earth. Yeah, no problem, man. You're so down to earth, amazingly talented.
Thank you.
So part of this is we want to get what everybody's perspective is and how COVID-19 is affecting them, and ultimately how they're going to carry after this, and hopefully things start to pick up. But yeah, main function of this podcast, we want to bring artists together, and and hopefully give the chance for musicians to also collaborate, because we also believe that musicians should get together. We always talk about our other guests, like, hey, maybe one of these days we can get a recording session or something like that. So we always feel like the community should come together, because like, you look at how jazz started. That was just like a melting pot of different cultures blending together, and like you got think of the Renaissance. You just every time these multiple backgrounds come together, you get this birth of new styles, and I think we're missing that in today's culture. Everyone's kind of evolved for themselves, every man for themselves, and and there is, I guess, that part of the element to that. But we think it's cool to kind of revisit. Well, let's go collaborate again. Let's mingle with other musicians. Let's collaborate. Let's see what new stuff and we can generate.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that it's hard to find new influences in a world where the whole world is available through the internet, yet still people are more isolated. It's really quite baffling.
It is. It's a strange irony there. It's like, everything's available at the touch of a button, yet somehow people are a little more distant.
There's too much watered down content out there. Back in the day, people really had to earn it if you wanted to make it, get some notoriety. Nowadays, anybody with a few $100 can start up a recording business.
It's hard to get through the noise without screaming. And then what do you get?
You gotta search deep. Are you familiar with someone who is probably my number one We mentioned Snarky Puppy, but someone who I absolutely admire more than almost anybody ever is Esperanza Spalding. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
The name, but I'm not particularly familiar.
All right, so I got an album you should check out by her. It's called 12 Little Spells, and she's like every great jazz singer in history into one times Joni Mitchell plus Prince. So
righty then.
Oh yeah, and you could throw a little Zappa in there too. She's really something unique. You got to check her out.
All right, send me a text when we're done, or send me a message.
I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah,
I hear all this stuff. There's so often when people say, "Oh, you should definitely check out blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Okay, I will."
Links. Down on me links.
I'll definitely follow up on that. And wanted to ask you too, Ken. Have you ever gotten on any of the bigger stages in Boston, like a Symphony Hall or somewhere like that?
Not a whole lot, really. I played at Berkeley Performance Center.
Oh, that's probably the best sounding, one of the best sounding venues anywhere.
Right, except for the interference sometimes.
Tremendous sound.
Yeah. So there's that. I played at Symphony Hall, but it wasn't Symphony Hall the main stage.
I got you.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I played down at Foxwoods. Once again, it wasn't the main stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, I played a bunch of places like that.
I was going to ask Ken.
I haven't played big places in Boston as much as, I played the Blue Note, and I've played, festivals in Switzerland, Norway, Czechoslovakia, places like that. Sometimes it's a little tougher to be, recognized as the biggest, coolest thing in your hometown.
Right. Yeah, you should though, because you're definitely a legend around here, man. And
thanks.
We'll do.
I'm playing around all the time. I don't really tour, in Boston.
Oh, really? Okay.
So if you're around and you play at Mercy Tavern, and then you play at I don't know whatever place at the Grog, and you play there's a lot of places that are more concert venues. And they don't want you playing anywhere within 50 miles for a month.
Yep.
That's interesting. Yeah, Derek, I remember we were talking about this a while ago. It's like, how often do you play a certain area, like Salem or whatever? Because some other art, like you just said, it can actually, I don't know. Do you think it's bad for the artist, or is it maybe more of the club's decision not to let that happen?
It's the club's decision, because we wanted to work. Remember, at one point we wanted to work Somerville. We said we thought that'd be a good town to work for a month, get as many places there as we can to start gaining a following. But some of those venues were like, you can't play somewhere else nearby for another month, so it just damaged that opportunity. Yeah. So
yep,
right. Well, it depends. In my opinion, if you're a place where people go to see good music, then that shouldn't be an issue. Like if you're there, I don't know, say once a month.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Or even less. I mean, really in the Salem-Beverly area, there were a lot of people who were playing in the same general area night after night after night. And it actually made the whole scene grow.
Yeah, that's how it should.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, if you're playing night after night for free, but you want to charge $20 a ticket, it gets a little harder, because why would someone pay $20 a ticket to see a group that they can see the next week?
Exactly. So you kind of have to create that scarcity in a way to kind of.
So you have and sometimes what happens is you have groups who really aren't very good. They're not really professional musicians, and they end up getting these gigs at these places that are more like concert halls because they aren't local musicians who play around. They don't play in their local area, partly because they're not capable of doing it.
Oh, wow.
So it's there's that aspect to it, but then I've made a choice sometimes not to travel, and although that choice is getting less available to anyone in the music business,
right,
as years go.
Take whatever gig you can get, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a working local musician, and you know, I can sometimes play these concert places under my own name, but I can't do it as easily as, you know, maybe somebody who's touring from Indiana and they can afford to, you know, kind of, they don't need to make a living playing music. Once you have to make a living playing music in a local area, there's a lot of changes that happen, really.
There should be a local musicians union. What do you think? Can we start that today? Should we start the local musicians union here? Get all these out-of-towners out of here. No, just kidding.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we were in Vermont, Steve and I and some people, and we went to a restaurant one night. We discovered this guy, Dwayne Carlton. He's just an acoustic. He's an acoustic player, and I couldn't believe at the professionalism. As a, you know, I always thought in my brain that when I'm on stage, I'm as professional as possible. But then we're yelling out these random Pink Floyd songs to him, at just being not jerks, but just to see if he could do it. And he's playing all of them, and I'm like, somebody like him who just knows everything you're yelling out to him. I'm like, that's just so. How can I get to that level? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's so much, you know, and I feel like musicians that, you know, Steve always brings up the band Fish, like, you know, they grew up and they had some hard times, like using like hockey sticks as microphone stands, and now selling out arenas. You got to start somewhere and just like be sleeping on couches for a while, so to speak, to get to where you want to be. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of tough. And I get depressed over it sometimes, just, you know, even after a show, I just feel like, even if it went well, I just like, what am I expecting from it? What do I expect, you know? And it's, I finally realized that I just got to be happy doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Expectations are a killer.
Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, no, I just said expectations can be a killer.
True.
Yeah, I mean, really, I'll play, you know, I'm doing these live streaming things. There's no one here. It's me.
Yeah, you're still doing it, though, Ken.
I listen back to it and feel good about the performance, then I feel pretty good. You know, it's nice when people comment or, you know, or tip or whatever, you know.
Right.
I mean, that kind of makes it a little easier to, in my opinion, I like people to participate, and, you know, I like talking about music and helping people with music and things like that. But ultimately, the main thing is that I feel good about my performance, you know, that I'm in a situation where good music could be received, and that I'm delivering it. And if that's the case, then, you know.
You can't lose. You can't lose.
Yeah, hopefully people like it, but if they don't, at least I still feel good.
Exactly.
I always say, you know, with live music, the right spectator is just as important as the right musician on the stage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be a little hard to emotionally invest yourself into someone with their back turned to you talking.
Exactly, right. Everybody feeds, it's a give and take, and when you get the right crowd, the right band, the right music, it's, you know, that's when you can get magical moments.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
This is kind of a dumb statement, but I feel like it makes sense. Like, so what you're saying is that it's kind of like, you'd rather play a great show to 1/4 the house than a mediocre show to a full house type thing.
Oh, I absolutely don't want to play a mediocre show. I would rather play a mediocre show to no one.
Right.
Honestly.
No time for mediocre.
Yeah.
I don't want to play a mediocre show to anyone. I mean, it's okay. And, you know, I have gotten into situations where, you know, I think of it as somehow a career builder gig. And I'm not always as thrilled with the music, but I'm like, well, you know, if I do this, then these people will see me, and then they may be more inclined to hire me further down the road. So I can think of it sometimes as an investment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%.
That's true. Yeah, that's a big part of it. I feel like too.
It's great. There's only so much, but I think I may have leaned a little bit. I may not have done the career building, you know, rep building kind of gigs as much as, I don't know, maybe it would have been better to do more of them. I'm not sure.
Well, you're more about the music, I think, you know, and it's hard dealing with both aspects of that, and trying to be the musician and the businessman. It's distracting to the music for sure.
Yes. Right. Or sucking it up and doing whatever you have to do to get famous.
Yeah. And you try to play all the time, you know.
If I see,
Yeah.
if I see you playing anything electrical, we switching to digital, Ken, we're gonna have problems.
If I
Bob
see
Dylan going electric.
Yeah, right.
If we see you with a synth flugelhorn, Ken, we know you've jumped the shark.
Hey, I'll just
What's that?
What'd you say?
What was that?
Lenny, what'd you say?
Oh, I said if the day comes and we see you playing a synth flugelhorn, I think we know you've jumped the shark.
Well, you know, the truth is I play with this one group, and it's playing in theaters and stuff like that, and I play an iwi because they do this song called Flute Thing.
Now, what's that? I don't think I've ever heard of that.
What's it called?
Already.
It's an iwi? Is that what it's called?
It's an electronic wind instrument.
Oh,
Because it's supposed to be flute, and I knew I wouldn't get the embouchure together. And so I went for the iwi.
You don't have the embouchure, kid.
I didn't.
Right.
I expect that I will. You know, there's only so many instruments I can practice to get together on that level.
Yeah, you lose that lip. You can lose that lip quick. I grew up playing the baritone horn, little trombone, and tuba at times. But I know all about the embouchure.
The embouchure on flute is like, that's a whole. I could never. Even a saxophone or a clarinet. I could never get the thing to make a nice tone with the woodwind. You know, I was a brass instrument player and stringed instrument player, but I could never blow in the thing right. I just could never get it. Yeah. Well, you got to get the right tone. Having good tone is.
That's why I gave up. I said I'm never going to get a good tone out of this thing. Time to try guitar.
Yeah.
There you go.
String instruments.
Absolutely.
But Ken, thanks. I don't. Maybe we can, if you want a couple more minutes here. But I was gonna say one more last question. 2 gigs.
Sure.
Nightmare gig, best gig ever.
Well, I got a funny story. I got one funny story. I did a festival once. Speaking of a situation playing for zillions of people, zillions of people. It was in. I don't remember where it was. I think it was in Massachusetts. And there was a sound engineer who just couldn't get the concept of the kick drum being dynamic, right? He wanted to have the kick drum the same level, like disco, loud, volume the whole time. And he wanted to have the microphone right on the inside the drum,
Yeah.
And we showed up and the drummer, who I really like, and I don't disagree with his concept at all, he said, I don't play that way. We're not cutting a hole in my drum head. You just put the microphone in front of the drum and it'll be fine. Anyway, the engineer just couldn't accept that. And so what he did was he turned it up so loud that the whole time there was this low end feedback going on stage. Now you couldn't hear it out front. I didn't realize this, but on stage I heard it the whole time. And so I'm playing bass and I can't hear a single note I'm playing.
It's all sounds like mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even mud. It was just like the whole time there was this note. It was
like a droning. It's taking over your brain basically.
That's the worst.
Oh, it's like this. Let's see if I can get. Here we go. Sound like this.
Oh my God,
man.
Yeah, that's like distorted mud.
Oh God.
That's nightmarish feeling.
All the time for the whole show.
No way. I don't know how you got through that, man. Because I think we've dealt with that once on stage. We played the House of Blues, and this was just a short. It was like only 30 seconds. This happened. It was like a.
Yep.
And I'm like, I can't hear anything I'm playing, man. And that was only 30 seconds to a minute, and that was driving me crazy. And I can't imagine a whole playing
a whole show.
I lose my mind. That's I hate that. It's just.
Yeah, the toughest part was me not just to say, hey, what's going on? I'm not going to play until you get this right. It's like the show had to go on, I guess.
I'll just wait.
The show must go on.
So that was a situation. Yeah.
Kind of like when we tried to mic up that 300-piece drum set, you know, nothing was working. But we had to force him to. He didn't even want to start the show, too. That was the other thing. We probably battled it for half an hour, 45 minutes. Like, dude, we got to play.
Yeah, he would hit one tom, and it would just go. It was like, what, dude? This is so
Miking drums is not a simple thing.
No,
not at all.
23, whatever, how many drum heads he's got. I don't know. It's freaking crazy.
Too many.
I think he had a gong too. Possibly.
Ken, before in case my battery dies, I just had a suggestion for a theme that I know my wife would appreciate. Maybe you could do some Disney themes. I know she would love that.
Wow, Disney.
Ooh.
What do you think?
I could. I do know them.
Oh, well, bingo, bango. There you go.
I used to play for dance classes way back when. And some of them were kids' dance classes. So
perfect. So you've already got the knowledge on that one.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids, my daughter is calling right now.
Oh, that was Aladdin. I'm sorry.
I said, speaking of kids, my daughter is calling right now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I think that's why we lost your video.
Yep. Well, what do you think? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
Fine. I don't want to. I know you're probably busy. You gotta talk to her. So, Ken, it was so nice meeting. It was so nice meeting you.
Likewise, again.
More of your music. I can't wait to dig into it and watch some live feed. So, thank you so much.
Absolutely. This was a ton of fun, Ken.
This Saturday night, 7:00.
I'll be there.
We'll be there, man.
I'll spread the word too. All right, thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken. We'll be in touch, man.
See ya.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.